Hey there, welcome to Generations Wealth Talk, and my name is Todd Watley, and I am here with my co-host, Mr. Ian Weinder. Hey, man.
Hey, Todd. You ready for the
I
trip?
like your shirt.
Oh, likewise.
I like my shirt. It's a theme day, okay? We're having a theme day today because I think our advice, mine as an attorney working with people trying to qualify for Medicaid, sometimes immediately, sometimes a few years down the road. And one of the most common questions I get, I answer, and they're like, wait, what? And it's like, yeah, that's the answer. And you do the same things periodically.
Oh, it's true. Well, a lot of folks are surprised, and maybe you're learning that we're a little bit different than what what you typically expect from a certified financial planner, a certified elder law attorney. But the reason that we're this way is because we understand really what are the important things in life, and how do we prioritize those. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, so we're doing Hawaiian shirts because I think that's a emblem
Dress
of
for the job you want, right? That's what
dress
they say.
for the job you want. So I know a lot of my friends, I love going to Hawaii. That is our dream trip, and we've done it a few times, and actually I'm scheduled to go in February. I love going to Hawaii. I love to travel, and so do a whole lot of our clients. But we're not talking about just traveling. We are talking about spending money, giving away money, and that surprises people because I think a lot of people think that their financial advisors like, oh, save, 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 don't spend. And with our clients going into retirement, they've saved their entire life. Now it's okay to spend if they know how much they can spend. And for me, working with clients going into the nursing home, I like to tell people, if you want to give away money, if you're like, I don't want to go to Hawaii, but my kids do, then why don't we give them some money so they can then go to Hawaii? You can do that. And even if you need nursing home care in a year, we can make all of that work out.
We can build a plan for that. You know, what's interesting and what surprises folks is that really money, there's a cycle for money. And there's really three parts to that cycle. This is throughout your life. And you could see that there are micro cycles of this as well. But we think of the three phases as the accumulation phase, the preservation phase, and the distribution phase. You know, the accumulation phase is we're building up a nest egg or a pile of money. The preservation phase is we need to make sure that that's going to last as long as we need it to. We need to give those dollars a purpose. Yep. And the distribution phase is, okay, how do we actually execute that purpose?
Yeah.
And what's interesting to us is we tend to work with folks who have spent a lot of time in the accumulation phase and are having a hard time transitioning into the preservation and distribution phase. And another reason that we're different is we specialize in the preservation and distribution phase. Yeah. And so because of that, we see things differently. The ideas that we use and the type of planning that we do is different than for folks in the accumulation phase. And the phase of your life should match your tools, your strategies, and the way that you're approaching things.
I like it when we meet with folks, particularly you will meet with them and you actually give them permission to go spend money. They're like, but I may run out of money. And you're like, no, here's some fancy software that we have. We can show it. And if you spend this much per month for the rest of your life, here's your assets still going up or staying very the same. You can go spend money. And that surprises people. They're like, so I can actually go buy the RV or I can go on vacation. And with my part is I can actually give money to my kids so that they can enjoy it. A lot of people think about giving away money at your death, as in inheritance. Yeah, that's great, but what if you gave it to them now so that you can see them enjoy it? One of our mutual friends, she took her and I think almost her entire family, grandkids, and everyone to Disney World. And she
Two kids, spouses, and the grandkids.
But you had given her permission to say, look, you can spend this much money. you're okay, you can do this. And she tells us still to this day, that was the best trip ever. I enjoyed it. I saw my grandkids meet Mickey Mouse and, do all this stuff. And she's like, that was a fantastic way to spend my money.
Well, it's such an interesting idea because, we want to think about what is the money for? Mm-hmm. And sometimes this is a step that we miss. Mm-hmm. What I find working with a lot of my colleagues are advisors that focus on the accumulation phase, and so that's typically targeted towards, hey, we need to get to $1 million or $2 million or whatever the number is. We're focused on getting to a goal number, and typically what happens is we don't think about, okay, when we get there, then what?
Then what? Yeah, what do you do with that?
Then what? Well, we'll figure it out when we get there. That's not necessarily the greatest way to plan, sure. Some of the most important things in your life, right? And so we work with folks who are at the, okay, now what? Or the then what mm-hmm. phase. And what's interesting about that is what the behaviors that people build getting to that point mm-hmm. are hard to unwind. They're hard to undo. And so we have to have a conversation about what's the purpose of this money? Mm-hmm. What's it for? Almost every single week I talk with someone and, they've hit their number sometimes 2 or 3 times over. And we're talking about, okay, how do we make sure that those dollars do what you want them to do from now on? Mm-hmm. And typically the conversation goes like this. Hey, if we made an extra $500,000, million, whatever it is over the next few years, would your lifestyle change? Would you spend your money differently? Invariably, the answer is no. Mm-hmm. But if we lost $500,000, $1 million, would that change? Yeah, that would change.
That's where preservation
That's the
comes
preservation
in.
part of
Mm-hmm.
this.
Yes.
But once we get through that phase, and we've covered those expenses, it's a reworking. Mm-hmm. Now we've got to figure out, okay, if we don't spend it all, where's it going to go? And where do we want it to go?
Yeah.
In fact, that was a conversation we had just yesterday in the office mm-hmm. with a family who had diligently saved. They had gotten through the preservation phase. They're expecting to live longer than they ever thought that they would.
Sure.
And now the problem that they have is they don't want to lose everything to the nursing home.
Yeah.
And so we've built a plan and we're encouraging them to spend it on the things that matter most to them now and enjoy it.
And still make sure that the nursing home is going to be paid for if they ever need it. And it was just cool. At the very end of our meeting, she's like, I love to crochet and do things, and I want you to make sure that I have money so that I can crochet. And we're like, yes, ma'am, we can do that. And he loves to garden. Yeah. But he's been doing his own finances. He's been running this company. He's been working hard his entire life. And I think we gave them permission to say, let's turn this over to the kids. Let's sit back and let's do what we want to do, and we know that we have the money to do that. And it's just it's a very interesting transformation.
It's a different way to look at it, mm-hmm. And I think something that, if you're listening to this, something that can help you to begin this process is to really look at money as a tool. Money's a tool and it has a job to do. Mm-hmm. We need to figure out what is the job that it needs to do. Because the thing that a lot of folks don't realize is that this is the argument that I'll make to you. Your most valuable resource is actually your time.
It's not your money. It's your time. It's
really not your money. It's not any of your investments. It's not your home. It's your time, because once you spend it, you can't get it back, mm-hmm. and you can't get any more of it.
Yeah. And
so the point of your other tools, your investments, your assets, your cash, is to allow you to spend your time on the things that you want to spend it on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fun. It's, giving them that permission to, and the knowledge to know I can actually spend this much money and know that I'm going to be okay. And I think one thing that I've heard you tell people is, and it's not just all of my money, here's the purpose. There's different segments. Mm-hmm. It's like, I want this money to go to my grandkids, hopefully in 10 or 15 years. Well, your mindset is, okay, if we have 10 or 15 years, this money is going to be invested differently mm-hmm. than I want this money to pay for a trip to Italy next summer. Okay, well, that's a different mindset on this pot of money. And this pot of money is going to be for whatever, for the nursing home, if that ever occurs. And so that's going to be treated differently. And I just think a lot of advisors don't have that segmented thought pattern of saying, okay, let's look at all the things that you want to do, and let's pick a pot of money to do each of those things, and we need to treat those differently. What?
Well, a great way to think about it is we want to define our goals and put dollar values to those, and then we want to pair those use by dates with our investments. If we need to invest, if we need to spend money, if we need to use those dollars in the next year, we probably shouldn't have those in really volatile investments, right? When you're maybe younger, you can try to get away with that. It's not a good idea, but you have more time to maybe recover. But if you don't, or conversely, if you don't need to spend that money for 10 or 15 years, we invest it differently. And so we need to understand, what are your goals and what is it going to cost to fund them? And we can match your time horizon, or when you need to spend those dollars, with what their purpose is. And it sounds really simple, and it really is that simple, but we need to do it in a disciplined way. There's an analogy that I really like with this that has been coming up for me recently. My sister just got engaged, my baby sister, and so I'm learning a lot about the wedding planning process, which is a racket in a lot of ways. But that's another story entirely. Yes, that's a different show. But it's so interesting because we talk about she has a set budget of how much they're going to be able to spend. And they've got to figure out, what are the important things? What's most important? Is the venue more important, or is the food more important, the beverage more important? And so we're prioritizing these different things because, given the fact that she has a budget, she can't do it all, right? And so this idea of the food came up. And I was talking to one of my clients actually about this, and we had a great conversation. And these folks were telling me about when they got married years and years ago, that her mom was panicked about the food at the wedding, but in a really interesting way. And I've not just heard it this way, and it's so interesting. So very frugal folks, grew up during the Depression, and so this is very, they want to make sure that we get everything right. And so they didn't want to have too much food, but they also didn't want to run out of food either. And so, they told the story of the caterer walking them through the plan. Okay, this is how many people you have. We're going to have these dishes here, line by line. Okay, everyone's going to be well fed. And as soon as they got through that sigh of relief, she goes, well, what are we going to do with all the leftovers? And so I love this story because it begins to frame this issue, right? When folks get through the accumulation phase, we're figuring out, okay, what's our budget? What can we do? How are we gonna enjoy this? We sort of have a balance between getting everybody stuffed at the party or having some leftovers. And where's the middle ground here? And what we tend to find, at least with our clients, is we tend to find people that have prioritized. They'd rather have more leftovers than eat well during it. But that might not be optimal. That might not be what's really what they want. But they do that because they're afraid.
They're afraid of
that it's not going to go the way that they think.
The unknown. They don't know what's out there. They don't know, is this money going to last? What's going to happen with the market? And I think one thing on that topic you told this family yesterday was he's been doing his own investments, and I think he's done fairly well. But you said once you looked at it, he had way more risk for the return, and you were able to make it with less risk with the same or better return. And I think he was just like, oh, and this is why you do what you do. This is what you do all day, every day, where he's trying to run a company, grow a garden, and do stuff. And investments, I need to work on that. And this is what you do. You have access to so many different things out there that you say, hey, what if we decrease risk and increase return? That's two really good things.
Well, it makes sense to think of it in those terms. And what's so interesting to me about investments specifically is that everything has dramatically changed in the last 10 to 20 years. It's so different than it was in the 1930s and 1940s, and yet many people invest as if it's still that way today. And so much has changed but yet also everything is really the same.
Yeah.
You know, what I love about the story of the wedding is people across generations can connect with that.
Sure.
Because this is a challenge that has happened, you know, back to time immemorial, right? Is, you know, we want to throw a party, there's all the dynamics in it, right? And the principles apply across the way, but how we execute those things is dramatically different now than it was. The same is the case with investing. You know, just because your parents had a wedding and did it a certain way doesn't mean that that's the optimal way to do it now. You know, there's new options, there's new challenges, and so I think it's important for folks to understand that, you know, just because it worked for a while doesn't mean it's always going to work.
Okay, so let's take a break for just a second. I want to come back and talk about my thing about gifting. Give away money even if you need nursing home. And it's like, wait, what about the 5-year look back? I got that covered, and we will cover that next time.
Let's address that.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Dave Todd, president of Todd Films. We work alongside Bella Vista Community Television to produce some of the content you see aired here. Have you thought about reaching your customers through a television ad? We have several options for you to consider. They range from coming to our studio here, or going to your place of business, or on location. Once you have your commercial, Bella Vista Community Television has several options for you to consider for airing your commercial. Do you have a live event that you would like to capture on video? We also offer live production packages that may be of interest. Please continue to tune in to Bella Vista Community Television. We hope you are enjoying this program. And now back to the show.
Hey there, welcome back. So in our last segment, we were talking about investments and how it's actually okay to spend money, or
It can be okay.
it can be okay. Take some steps, know the system. And I think the other thing that people are surprised with me, being an elder law attorney doing a whole lot of Medicaid type things, I tell people ask, can I give away money? My kids need some money. I need to buy a car for my grandson, or my child lost their job. Can I give them money? I'm like, absolutely. And they're like, but what about Medicaid? What about that 5-year look back? Yes, there is a 5-year look back. And it's not a 5-year prohibition on gifting. It's a 5-year look back. It's like when you apply, you have to tell Medicaid what you've done with your stuff for the previous 5 years, okay? What we've done is we've given things away. And if I had a whiteboard, I could explain this, but just please trust me that with Medicaid rules, following the rules, telling Medicaid everything that we're doing, we are able to protect 50% almost always, and sometimes 60 or 70%. If you come in with no gifting to get you qualified as a single person, we're going to give away assets, and we give away half and we use the other half to pay for the nursing home throughout the penalty, okay? And if there's been gifting, I can make that work as long as you have as much money as you gave away. And that's the key, okay? If you do gifting, had this conversation with my friend yesterday. He's a few years older than me, and both of them have had some health issues. And they're kind of concerned about the nursing home. And it's like, well, how can I qualify? How can I get some money to my kids? I'm like, give them some money. He's like, wait, but what if I need it later? Keep as much as you give away. As long as you come to see me, if you have $300,000 and you've given away $150,000, and your kids come into me next year and say, hey, Dad's bad, he needs nursing home care, we gave away $150,000, my first question is, do you still have $150,000? And they're like, yeah, perfect. We can make that work out. And they're like, how does that work? I was like, well, it's within the rules. We just use the $150,000 that they currently have to pay for the nursing home to cover the gift by the other $150,000, okay? It's just math. Okay, but it gives people the freedom to say, hey, yes, you can make gifts, yes, you can do things, and not worry about the state.
Well, I think what's so interesting too, when we talk about gifting, this is such an important topic, and there's so many misconceptions about it. You know, the other one that we see all the time that I love that it's usually sweet ladies who their husband has passed. They're like, I can't give more than $15,000 a year. You know, they don't want to pay tax, or the kids to be hit with the tax. if that applies to you, you would know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not a big deal. This year, it's 19,000. So our friends in Washington have gotten clever about ways to extract taxes when people are transitioning money. I think that's a gentle way to say that.
That's a gentle way to say it.
So after income tax and capital gains tax and sales tax and property tax, if you still have a large enough estate, they will tax gifting or tax passing on assets when you die. Now, under the current rules, as long as you don't give more than $13.99 million over your lifetime, you're fine. You're fine. $13.99 million per person.
Per person.
And so, if that's you, there's other ways that we can plan around that, which is actually really important.
Sure.
But unless that's you, those numbers really don't apply to you. It's not a big deal.
I would say the vast majority of people are not concerned about that. Okay, they don't have over $13.99 million.
But what's important about this is, a lot of folks know some of the rules, but not all of them. Everyone knows the $2,000 rule or you can't give over a certain amount, but that doesn't apply except in specific situations.
Well, and some people think, oh, well, I can give away $19,000 per year. Medicaid's not going to look at that. Oh, yes, they will. Okay, that's IRS saying that you can give away 19. That's not Medicaid saying that you can give away 19. So those two branches of the government
this stuff is tricky.
It's very tricky, yeah. But I just want you to understand, don't let the government or your fear of needing nursing home affect what you do for your family.
Get a plan and execute it.
Yeah, and we can definitely walk you through that. Come in, ask for an appointment with both of us, okay, and let us sit down. Ian's going to look at certain things. I'm going to look at certain things, and it's a really fun meeting because you can solve a lot of problems. I want to say all of your problems, but there's some problems we're not equipped.
We don't solve. Yeah, we're not licensed therapists. That's not something that we can do.
There are some problems we can't solve, but financial, legal, Medicaid, things like that, we can definitely solve those. And what I see with people is like, oh, I've got my guy. Okay, great. And if I'm your lawyer guy, I want to talk to your financial guy or gal, and sometimes that doesn't go so well, okay? Sometimes we have a hard time communicating, and sometimes they don't want to talk to me because it's like, wait, what are you doing? And so I tell my client, hey.
Want to rearrange things and blow up the...
Yeah, go tell your financial person, this is what we want to do. They go to them, it's like, oh, no, we need to do blah, blah, blah. And then they finally call me back, set up an appointment a few weeks later, and it's like, well, my financial guy said this. I'm like, no, that's not right. You need to tell them. And it's just back and forth, and it literally takes a year to do what we can do in 1 hour. We can sit down, and when I say that, Ian's like, no, Todd, hang on a second, blah, blah. And I, well, hang on a second, we need to, but boom, I mean, within an hour, we've got a whole lot of answers, a very solid plan to say, this is your financial, this is your legal, these are how these two things mesh, and you walk out of there going, man, I feel so much better knowing this is taken care of. I can go spend money, I can give away money, I can live my life and know that it's going to be okay legally and financially.
Well, I think what's so important too, and the hang up that a lot of folks have, conceptually they're like, okay, I like the idea. I want to gift money or I want to spend more money. But they still don't feel like they have enough clarity to be able to do that.
Right.
And so that's part of why I told that story about, the wedding feast, right? A lot of folks, are in that place, kind of like the mother-in-law. They're concerned that we're not going to have enough to eat, and once we solve that, they're concerned about having too many leftovers. And so, what we really need to do, this is the way we solve this, is we actually work through the process, kind of like the caterer did, and say, okay, this is how many people we have. This is the budget. Here's how much food that we're going to create. We've got to walk through line by line, showing you that you have enough.
And that's because this is not that caterer's first party.
That's exactly right.
They've done this, and they know.
They're not guessing.
Don't ask me how I know this, but if you're doing barbecue for people, you do about half a pound per person, okay? I would think...
Some people like me eat closer to a pound and a half.
But generally, they've done the research, and they know 1/2 a pound per person is fine. This much potato salad, and if we're doing that, we're going to mess it all up. We're like, I don't know how much people eat. They'll be underfed or we'll have a bazillion
I always
leftovers.
make too much food.
Sure.
Yep.
But that's the importance of going to someone that this is not their first rodeo, okay? I've done this Medicaid plan thousands of times. You've helped hundreds, if not thousands of people walk through this process. And why go research it? Why go study it? Just come see us. Let us sit down with you and say, okay, blah, blah. And within 1 hour, I mean, we've done some amazing work in an hour before.
We can get a lot done in that time, but that's really how we figure out what you can spend. We figure out what you do spend, what you need to spend, what your budget will allow, going, staying with the theme of the dinner at the wedding, and then we figure out what is going to be left over, and what do we want to do with that? How do we want to adjust that? And I think that really is the critical piece that is missing for a lot of folks, is that, their advisors focus on accumulation. We got to get to the number and stay at the number. Okay, then what? What does that mean? How much can we spend? What's it going to cost to fund all of our goals for the rest of our life? And that's a question that hardly anyone, I think, has had answered. And most of the time when we do that analysis, we find that it costs less than people think. And they're going to have leftovers. So then once we determine that we're going to have leftovers, so to speak, now we gift, and we gift proactively, or we spend and we spend proactively. Because what we don't want is for someone else, particularly Uncle Sam or a nursing home, frankly, to get that money that we could have enjoyed. That's what we're trying to focus on.
So we have just a few more minutes left. Let's talk about long-term care insurance.
Yeah, okay.
Long-term care insurance has changed dramatically just over the last 5 years. If you have a long-term care policy and it's stressing you out with the payments and it's like, do I need this? I have found at this point, when someone's lived their life, kids are gone, and they're now kind of looking at what's going to happen, I have found a lot of people who do have long-term care insurance, it's really not going to provide that much benefit. I will never tell you to drop it, but I will say, with this policy, here's what's going to happen. Without this policy, here's what's going to happen. A lot of people are like, I don't know why I'm paying $2,800 a year for this. I'm like, and so, that surprises people also. It's like we present to you and you walk out saying, I can terminate this policy, or people are surprised with some of the newer products about, for this amount of money, I can take care of this unknown, like you like to say, an unknown unknown. It's like we don't know if we're going to need it, and we don't know how much it's going to be. But with this one product, we can make sure that unknown unknown is now taken care of.
I think that's something that's so interesting right now to me, just from a planning perspective. This is something that we're emphasizing quite a bit more than we have, particularly with folks who don't traditionally, fit into the asset level for them to qualify for Medicaid.
Right.
And with home equity and with retirement accounts soaring, this can be a challenge.
Sure.
And so I had this conversation just yesterday with somebody. Of course, no one wants to go into the nursing home.
Yeah.
But the nursing home is filled with people who didn't want to be there.
That's true.
And so pretending like it's not a risk is not a good planning strategy. And so what we think about is, okay, if it's unknown that you're going to have a long-term care event, and we don't know what it's going to cost, this is where it's an unknown unknown. The risk is essentially unlimited in this situation.
I think people will be surprised to know that the statistics are 76% of people are going to need some long-term care.
Yeah.
76%. And a lot of people don't have insurance for that. Having a car wreck is like 3%. You have a 3% chance of having a car wreck and using your auto owner's insurance, but we all have it. But 76% of people are going to need long-term care, and a lot of people do not have insurance for it. Very few people have insurance for that.
And the thing to think about is, most people go, well, I have enough assets to self-insure. And that makes sense, right? But that's still an unknown liability. Yeah. So what if we could put a cap on that liability? Yeah. What's interesting is my wealthiest clients are the ones that are using these policies now because they understand leverage. Yeah. If for $100,000 or $200,000 they can get $6-7 million worth of benefit, that puts a cap on their risk and that protects the rest of their money.
Yeah,
And so,
so cool.
we just have to begin to think about these things differently, I think. And that's why we're dressed differently and why we do things differently.
So yeah, back to the shirts. We encourage you, if you want to get a plan and know exactly where you're at and what the future looks
Or
like.
stress test the plan that you currently have.
Stress test the plan, and people are very surprised.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we can save tens, hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars. Okay,
it's
not
true.
everybody, but looking at this and making some simple tweaks here and there can truly make a difference in how much money you can use to go on vacation or help your kids or leave your kids at death.
Do the things that you want to do.
Yeah.
You know, if you've worked hard, you've built a nest egg, you should spend that on the things that you want to spend it on, not something that you don't. Let's make sure that you have the foundation so that you can.
Yeah, so give us a call, 479-601-4119. That is the office number. Tell them that you want to meet with me or Ian or both, and we would love to work with you, and we will see you next month, okay? Thanks very much.
See ya.